sometimes China just blends multiple technologies together and just creates something new and different. And sometimes it doesn't work, and sometimes it works. And what I'm about to show you works, and it's so special that it's going to require the pink lamp holder of innovative dignity. So let's bring in the power meter for this, and the lamp involved. And let's screw the lamp in. Have you worked out what it is yet? So here's the lamp, and it's just full of sparkling points of light. And just in case you've not twigged this yet, it is that standard. Hold on, I've got some right here. It's the LED string lights, where the LEDs are just across copper wire. And all they've done is it's a parallel circuit, and all they've done is just mush 50 of them, because I counted. Well, I kind of counted half of them and then thought, yeah, that'll be 50. I'm not going to count them all, because trying to count something in 3 dimensions is quite tricky. But they've just mushed it into the lamp holder, and then you think, so what would be the best way to drive that? Well, the answer is, of course, it's a 1 watt LED driver. I mean, this is rated 1.4 watts, it's drawing at the moment. And if you consider it, the best way to drive it, effectively, this is a string of LEDs in parallel. It's going to have a forward voltage of about 3 volts. So if you get a 1 watt LED driver, then that's going to put out about, I can't actually work that out because I'm not sure the current will be in there. Let's try and work it out roughly, assuming 100% efficiency, which definitely isn't going to be 100% efficiency. It's showing 1.4 watts divided by the roughly, say, 2.8 volts of the LEDs equals half an amp. So 500 milliamps, 50 LEDs, they're running at 10 milliamps each, which is well within their range. And I think this is great. I couldn't get it in warm white. They had it in pink, they had it in blue. Blue would have been quite nice. I ended up getting cold, harsh white, but that's okay. I just kind of wanted to buy one to take apart. So let's take it to bits. Now this does appear to be a glass base. It says 110 to 240 volt. It's using one of those little switching converters that is so common. You know, the sort of thing that's like this LED driver here. Hold on, something to hoik open with. The sort of thing you'd find in the base of a GU10 type lamp. One of these tiny little switching converters. I'm guessing that's what's inside, although it could also be a little buck regulator. And now I have to try and get this base off without smashing the lamp, because I like this so much I kind of want to put it together again. It's not sealed. I don't think it's stuck in with the standard thermal cement. I think it's probably something I can heat up, so I'm going to do that right now. Very neat. Aside from the fact it was wrapped in insulation tape, I suppose it doesn't get hot, and it's supposed, you know, I suppose it's better they'd make sure it's well insulated from the metal casing in here. The circuit board design looks absolutely fine. It's typical of what you might find of these, no suppression as you'd expect, but the chip inside is a Bright Power BP90218. Bright Power give you the option of Chinese or English, the data sheets, and that's really nice. So it's one of their more modern chips, and it theoretically is an isolating transformer, though I wouldn't want to touch the output anyway. But the schematic here shows that the chip is very basic. It's got a power supply derived from resistor, which is, I guess, I can't see the resistor, I guess it's mounted underneath this transformer. And this little capacitor here, and that'll, initially when you power it up, that'll charge. And I don't know if it then derives by diverting some of the switching current to its own capacitor, or if it's just purely powering from the resistor, which is approximately 750k I measured from what I could actually, I don't know if that was being affected by other components. That resistor, certainly, that provides power to the chip, charges up that capacitor, that's its power supply. It's got an internal MOSFET that pulls the primary winding down, and everything is sensed by a current sense pin, and also it's got a resistor with a value of 1.65 ohms, and there's also a 62k resistor set on what they call, basically it's a pin that sets the open circuit voltage if the LED fails open circuit. So it's actually able to sense the sort of peak voltage from the output of this. Clever stuff. There is usually a little filter circuit. I'm guessing that that's probably underneath this transformer if it's present. I kind of hope it is. That just takes a spike out of the switching transient from the primary winding and just protects the MOSFET from a high voltage transient. The output is just through a diode and capacitor. Here's the diode, a high speed capacitor, diode should say, a high speed diode, and then a tiny little capacitor. It doesn't need to be very big. The LEDs themselves, which I've pulled out of the globe, are just a standard parallel string of LEDs, but they're actually, instead of the frequent arrangement of 3 wires, like the little USB sets you get, use the third wire not just as a current limiter, it actually goes from one end up to the other and feeds the other end, and they usually rely on that wire to add to the resistance of the set to current limit, but they also use that so the set's even illuminates evenly from one end to the other, because one end is being fed, the other end is being fed, and it means that no matter which LED, the combined resistance and the forward voltage of that LED is just, it's always the same, you know, it's always the same, exact same length of wire, so it doesn't trail off. But I suppose it's not really important in this situation. So yeah, that's quite a neat little solution, nice little circuit board. I've been thinking, I quite fancy, I was looking for some other LEDs. The only sets I've got that are warm white are just unfortunately huge and not really suited to it because they're designed for 12 volts. But I was thinking, could I? It's not going to push in, but it could glue. This little circuit board was sitting on top here, and it was basically, it was a connection point for the wires. Oh, I've jammed that in now. It'd be quite nice if that sat in there, which it does. Is that going to stop this screwing down on it? So, if I was to fit the circuitry, this module, tape it up and connect it down to this little bayonet cap holder and then put a socket in here, theoretically then I could just unscrew this and plug in I could stuff new sets of lights through the hole and then I could just plug it in to a little socket. That means I could change the colour if I wanted. I'm going to do that right now. Job done. And you know what? This little module was almost made to fit in here. I mean, it's just perfect. You know, it's one of these things that this modular lamp assembly with all the bits that screw together would really accommodate everything about this to actually be able to put on different globes and things like that. So what I've done here, just to add extra versatility, well, for a start, the module, I wrapped it in Kapton tape and then put the wires through, new wires, and put it through the 2 terminals of the bayonet cap. I should mention, this is a British bayonet cap holder. I'm not sure which other countries it's used in, but it's commonly used here. The metal on the outside is not electrically active, it's just a metal housing. And it's just the 2 pins in the end that are electrically active. So I poked the 2 wires, new cables, through those, pushed the pins in, and it's wrapped in Kapton tape to keep it away from the metal in the inside here, and I put a connector on, resined it into the end here, and it's just got a couple of wires so that it'll sit down there, and I could glue that in if I want, but I've not done that yet. And the idea is that once this is assembled, I can stuff the LEDs in of my colour choice and then just screw it on like this, and once it's screwed on, everything will just clamp in place and it will have the LEDs inside. It means that I can literally just unscrew it, unplug the lights, and if I get a new set of lights or I want a different colour, I can just stuff them in and then plug them into this connector. So the lights themselves, well, let's actually try this out. Let's plug it into the bayonet cap holder this time and plug it in. And I would treat this as being potentially live at mains voltage. It's theoretically isolated, but it's a very small transformer, and because the things are normally isolated, I would say don't play about with them while they're plugged into a module like this. But they are just a standard 50 LED string, 2 wires, very simple. It's not using that 3-wire system that other ones tend to use, where they feed it from both ends. And I guess that's just to make it more minimalist inside here. So now theoretically, all I have to do is stuff this back into the globe. That's probably the hardest bit. Anyway, I shall do that and I'll be back in a moment. And they're back in, it's back to normal, but with my little hack that lets me put other sets in. This is where, you know, I quite like the warm white LEDs, and I could have had the warm white LEDs, or I could have blue sets, but it's just one of these things that I just don't really think in advance. And the last warm set I had is currently outside, hooked up to a solar panel in the garden, so it lights a hedge at night. So back in go the cold white LEDs, but I do now have the option just to unscrew this and plug a new set in, so that's good. I have to say, feeding them in wasn't that hard, but I wouldn't like to work in the production line actually just doing it all day. You literally have to put it in LED by LED and just shove and shake it every so often and just sort of rotate the globe as you do it just to try and get a mix. And in a way, actually, I think it looks nicer now than it did before. It's got a better coverage, or am I just saying that because I did it? But you know, it's the way you put it in, it just, you know, is how it's going to look, so to speak. If you take a bit of care, you can get a fairly good coverage, and you can, if you give it a good shake afterwards, it does rearrange the LEDs a wee bit if you want to just spread them about a bit. So yeah, good result. I do like these lamps. So the odd, I'll leave a link down below that does a search them, but they're not very common on eBay at this point in time. This is early October. So in 2016, and at this point in time, these lights just seem to have appeared. And the warm white ones were sold out completely from the sellers. I don't think these are available in huge quantities yet, but I'll leave a search link that sort of finds this style of lamp. But they're sort of relatively hackable, but to be honest, they're nice in their own, you know, just in their original format. They're just a really attractive lamp. Very smart indeed.